Welcome to this exciting story. Subscribe now. The Thousand Colors of the Ganges, a collection of folk tales. Volume 1, North India, the Sacred River. Chapter 6, the Sari Star Map, the Reincarnation of Tie-Dye. In the tie-dye workshop in Ahmedabad, the fingertips of the old woman Parvati tremble on the machine tie-dyed fabric. The indigo dots are arranged neatly like imprisoned stars, having lost the vivid halos they should have. She suddenly recalls that 70 years ago, her grandmother held her hand on a full moon night and tied the first cotton thread on the cotton cloth. Each star position houses the eyes of Vishnu, my child. We have to wait for the moon to reach its rightful place. I, the tie-dye craftsman, losing the star positions. When Aaliya pushes open the creaking wooden door, she sees Parvati weeping in front of a kerosene lamp. The star pattern tie-dye map is spread out on the workbench. The pattern of Orion on the parchment glows faintly at the edges, while the traditional pattern's fabric produced industrially beside it looks lifeless. They say such patterns are more popular among tourists. Parvati's voice is like a water-soaked cotton thread. But what the machine ties are not star positions, but digital coordinates. Aaliya picks up the machine-tied sari. The indigo spreads at her fingertips, carrying the pungent smell of chemical agents. She remembers the scene she saw at the Holy Gate in Delhi, children chasing colorful powders but being choked by the cheap ones, while the real natural dyeing workshops are disappearing from the Ganges plain. Parvati suddenly grabs her hand, and the calluses on her palms scrape across Aaliya's wrist. Look at this fabric. The color gradation from light to dark should be the trajectory of karma purification, but now it's like a broken star chain. Outside the workshop, fine sand is blown up by the evening breeze in the Thar desert. Parvati points to the skylight. Tonight, the constellation Scorpio will rise. In the past, we would set up dye vats on the sand dunes and let the moonlight gild the fabric with stardust. Her cloudy eyes suddenly light up. But now even young Amir has bought a machine saying it can produce traditional patterns faster. 2. The secret language of the starry sky on the dunes. When Aaliya follows Parvati into the family's secret chamber, it's as if they've stepped into the womb of stardust. The walls are hung with faded tie-dyed cloth, each piece marked with a year. The comet tail pattern when Halley's comet passed by in 1905, the crack pattern representing the pain of the 1947 partition, the Sea of Tranquility pattern for the Apollo moon landing in 1969. Parvati gently strokes the fabric with a silver-blue luster. I was born that year. My grandmother said that 7 tiers of the Milky Way fell into the Ganges, and thus the 7-river star map was created. Late at night, the two of them bring cotton threads and clay pots to the desert oasis. Parvati kneels on the sand and draws the star map of Scorpio on the edge of the dye vat with Ganges mud. Antares is the third eye of Shiva. We have to tie the vital point of the fabric when it shines the brightest. She teaches Aaliya how to distinguish the tightness of the cotton threads. Too loose will make the star position deviate, and too tight will break the starlight. When the moon climbs to the tail of Scorpio, Parvati immerses the fabric with the tied Antares into the indigo dye. Her movement is like bandaging the wound of the universe. Every petal used to be picked during the morning prayer, and every drop of tree gum was mixed with a blessing incantation. Parvati's voice blends into the wind. Now people think tie-dye is just tying threads and dyeing, but they don't know that each thread is a contract with the stars. The fabric in the dye vat suddenly ripples, as if stars are waking up deep inside. 3. The fading moment of machine tie-dye. Amir's machine tie-dye factory is right on the edge of the oasis. The metallic noise shatters the silence of the desert. This young man, who once learned tie-dye from Parvati, is now adjusting the pattern parameters on the computer screen. Grandma always said that star pattern tie-dye is a waste of time. Look at this machine. It can produce 300 pieces a day. He points to the fabrics on the assembly line on the wall. Tourists like these regular stars. But when Parvati and Aaliya enter the factory with the just completed Antares pattern fabric, the air suddenly freezes. The indigo fabric slightly heats up in the moonlight, and the flame pattern of Antares beats like a living thing, forming a glaring contrast with the rigid blue dots of the machine tie-dyed fabric. As soon as Amir's finger touches the fabric, he withdraws it like he's been electrocuted. The starlight on the fabric actually spreads along his fingertip and reveals a golden Dharma wheel mark in his palm. Do you see clearly? Parvati's voice no longer trembles. The machine can copy patterns, but it can't copy the temperature of the moonlight, nor the breath of the cotton thread absorbing stardust. She unfolds the star pattern tie-dye map, and the parchment automatically flips over in the light of the fabric, revealing Sanskrit on the back. Each piece of tie-dyed cloth is a secret conversation between the craftsman and the universe. When you calculate the star positions with numbers, you've already lost the right to talk to the stars. The LED lights in the dye factory suddenly go out, and moonlight pours in through the skylight. The machine tie-dyed fabrics fade in the starlight, revealing the industrial chemical marks underneath, while Parvati's handmade sari seems to catch the entire Scorpio constellation. Each star position is flowing with a mixture of indigo and gold powder. Amir stares at the unfaded Dharma wheel in his palm, and remembers that when he was a child, his grandmother used a tie-dyed cloth to bandage his wound, and the Big Dipper on the cloth glowed faintly at night. 4. The tribute to tie-dye with the return of stardust. On the morning of Holi, Aaliya and Parvati bring 7 pieces of star-patterned tie-dye cloth to the Ganges beach. Amir follows behind, pushing an old-fashioned dye vat. Inside the vat is the natural indigo he prepared overnight. The cotton threads stretch in the vat, like star chains regaining their freedom. I dreamed that Antares fell into the dye vat. He dare not look his grandmother in the eye. The machine tie-dyed fabric will fade after being washed 3 times, but your fabric... Parvati shakes her head gently. It's not my fabric. It's the fabric of the stars. She immerses the Antares pattern sari into the Ganges. The river water suddenly boils and churns. The indigo blends with the river water and forms the star map of Scorpio on the river surface. The children on the shore run over, exclaiming. As soon as the hem of their clothes touches the dye, their exclusive karma marks appear on the fabric. A shy boy has a red mark of courage on his shoulder, and a self-deprecating girl has a yellow mark of wisdom on her forehead. Look, the 1,000 eyes of Vishnu are blessing you. Parvati holds up the river water, and stardust condenses into a small Dharma wheel in her palm. Amir suddenly kneels down and holds the cotton threads in the dye vat towards the Ganges. I'm sorry. I once thought that tradition was an outdated star map. The river water floods over the cotton threads, taking away the last trace of the industrial dye smell and revealing the hidden star pattern code in the cotton threads. It was the first star position his grandmother taught him to weave when he was a child. When the first ray of sunlight pierces the morning fog in the desert, the people on the beach find that all the machine-tied dyed fabrics are dyed with the starlight of natural indigo, as if the stars have forgiven humanity's impatience. Parvati drapes the Antares pattern sari over Aaliya's shoulders. The sari unfolds in the wind, and the flame pattern of Antares resonates with the waves of the Ganges, forming visible stardust ripples. Do you know why the dots of tie-dye don't fade? Parvati looks at the traditional dyeing workshop being set up in the distance. Because each star position houses a dawn waiting to be awakened. Amir looks at the new dye vat he designed. The body of the vat is engraved with the star map he chiseled out overnight. He suddenly realizes that true inheritance is not about replicating patterns, but about enabling each generation to find their own tie-dye code in the stardust. The Ganges water flows through the dye vat, taking away not only the chemical dyes but also the arrogance and misunderstanding of tradition. Parvati's fingertips slide across the wet fabric, and the star positions throb in her palm as if she has regained the warmth of her grandmother's palm 70 years ago. In the distance, Amir is teaching the children to identify the star positions of Scorpio. The cotton threads shuttle through the children's hands, weaving a new star map. It is the handshake between tradition and modernity in the stardust, and another rotation of the wheel of karma on the tie of cloth. When the colored powders of holy fly all over the sky, Parvati suddenly sees that each grain of colored powder turns into a tiny star position, falling on everyone's shoulders. These colors made from natural plants will eventually flow into the Ganges under the wash of rain and become the stardust of the next piece of tie-dyed cloth. And she knows that as long as the stars are still there, the reincarnation of tie-dye will never stop, because each piece of fabric is a letter from the Ganges to the universe, and each ray of starlight is the signature of civilization in time. This episode ends, but the story continues. Subscribe now.